Hi there, this is Terry, and welcome to another episode of the Animation Industry Podcast. Today's chat is a little different. I'm chatting with Christian Lee, who is from Norway, and what's different about this chat is that Christian is actually on a similar path to me, where he is documenting his journey into the animation industry. So Christian originally has a background in music, so he grew up loving music since he was about 12. He's played in a band and started a YouTube channel about sharing rock music history and the journeys of bands like Radiohead, Arctic Monkeys, and Rage Against the Machine. And to make these videos more appealing, he decided to animate them. His YouTube channel from all this actually blew up, and he's received well over 19 million views so far. But one thing he discovered through all this was his love for animation, and so now he's pivoting towards that. So he started to self-study animation principles and interview professionals from the animation world to learn more, and that's actually how we met. In this chat, Christian is going to share his journey, how he purposely made his YouTube channel into a success, how he started a podcast devoted to character design, and also how he found the confidence to decide exactly how to build a path for his career, and of course what he's been learning about the animation industry since. But before we get into that, I have a sponsored message to share with you, and it comes from my friends over at Bloop Animation, which is an animation learning platform packed with premium online video courses for aspiring animation filmmakers. They have courses for all major animation programs like Maya, Animate CC, Toon Boom, Blender, TVPaint, and many others, as well as some non-software courses like a storyboarding course, animation foundations course, and even one about making graphic novels, which covers absolutely everything you need to know from start to finish. Their courses are all in video form, so there are no deadlines or application process. You simply just pick a course and start learning in seconds. And they even offer a free ebook titled Making an Animated Short, which covers their entire process step by step of how they made one of their films, from coming up with the idea to storyboarding, animation, and all the way to exporting the film. And you can get that book for free at bloopanimation.com/animation-industry. And you can check out their complete course library at bloopanimation.com/courses. And I've included both of those links in the description of this chat, so please check them out. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the chat. Hello, Christian. How are you doing today?
Hey, man. I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little bit roasted after like the whole day of working. I've been trying to learn. I've gotten into a lot of anatomy studies these days.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So you spent the whole day studying anatomy?
No, not the whole day. For the most part, I've done a little bit of character design. I'm currently working on a new video that's coming up. But yeah, other than that, I've tried to learn some anatomy, and it can be a little bit dry, but like in general, it's very exciting. But it's so much. There's so much to learn, right? So,
yeah, in Sheridan, we have to learn every bone in the body and every muscle, pretty much. It's ridiculous. So should I put you on the spot right now and ask you what kind of anatomy you were working on today?
Today I was working on legs.
Legs.
Lower leg, yeah.
Gastrocnemius, what's that?
Oh, gastrocnemius, that's the one at the furthest at the back, right? Over the soleus.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. It's like the calf muscle. Oh my gosh. I shouldn't go any further because I'm gonna have to test my own knowledge of these muscles. My gosh. I feel like because we're tested on every single muscle, and I feel like part of it is like one year out the other, but I've still retained a bunch. That's super interesting though. So are you doing this on your own time, or is this for a project, or like what specifically are you learning anatomy for?
It's basically for character design because I've taken a bit of a break from the Lee Likes Music channel right now because I just need to find my footing again. I feel because for the longest time I've kind of recycled, and I think we talked about this in the podcast that we recorded together for my podcast.
Yeah.
The whole idea of me creating content that is not originally mine. It's remixed content that I've found on Google and on YouTube and different places, and I've kind of mixed. I've blended some infographics in there as well, so it's kind of a remixed material that I've been using for the longest time for my videos. But right now, I want to get into creating as much original material as I can possibly create, basically. And so I thought, why not learn how to draw? And so anatomy is one of the fundamentals when it comes to drawing, in addition to like tone and perspective and all of these things, right? And I've kind of covered the basics of the basics when it comes to perspective and tone. And I'm super afraid of color. I don't know what it is with color, but me and colors just don't work yet. But that's kind of the area that I've tried to specialize in when it comes to drawing right now, anatomy, because that's it seems very, very challenging. It's like learning a new language almost. Um, but that's also what kind of makes it exciting, I think, for me, just the whole process of learning something so big and complicated, you know?
Nice. Let's take it back a little bit because you mentioned your YouTube channel. Let's talk about that because you've actually found some success on YouTube by putting together these videos, and that was part of your journey for a long time. And now you've switched things up. So tell me where the YouTube channel started and what is that all about?
Sure. It's a very long story that goes back.
Well, this is a podcast. Feel free to share.
All right. So I got the idea for starting a YouTube channel back in 2014, and I think the idea just came from me always, watching other people, being on camera and thinking like, or before that even, I also thought I want to create a business and I want to create something for myself. And, I realized that there's so many possibilities opening up now with the internet and like all these tools on the internet being so readily available. You can create whatever you want. And so, being the creative person that I was and that I still am, being the creative person that I was at the time, I don't know. I wanted to explore something new. I wanted to learn something new, and so I jumped into creating a YouTube channel. The first YouTube channel I created was called Become Your Strength. So that was a YouTube channel related to like personal development, which again is completely different from like music and now art, which I'm getting into. I guess to sum everything up in a nutshell, I guess I was just exploring a lot because I'm still young. I'm 25, and I know that there's tons and tons of people that don't figure out what they want to do until they're like in their 30s or in their 40s. And I mean, you're lucky if you figure it out early on. And I think also you go through a lot of phases where you jump from one thing to another. You certainly have gone through that process with going from like the software company that you worked with, right? And then to animation. But anyways, so yeah, I started this YouTube channel related to like personal development, and so I was doing a lot of different experiments when it came to that stuff. And I was doing interviews, I was doing book reviews, I was creating a lot of different types of videos, but it never really led to me anywhere specific, right? And
what were you specifically looking for?
I don't know, just a way to grow, I guess.
Yeah. Like
just
personally yourself?
Sorry?
Personally yourself or the YouTube channel, you mean?
Yeah, it was, I guess the YouTube channel was a way for me to just self-actualizing myself,
Okay.
And I remember one of the earliest memories for me, and this is, I think, very much connected to why I started YouTube in the first place and playing music and art and all of this. I remember when I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, I had this little like toy recorder with a cassette. You could put a cassette inside, right? And I remember I used to walk outside of our house here in Norway, and I used to kind of just record all kinds of weird sounds that I could find. So rocks that I would throw on the ground, and like boxes of metal, I would throw them and I would record that. And I would kind of record everything, and it would turn into this kind of a mixtape of all kinds of weird ambient noises and stuff. And so that was, I guess, my first album. I don't know.
I like it.
Something like that. And and yeah, so I've always been creative, and I've always wanted to grow, and I guess that is the reason why I started that personal development channel.
Yeah.
But then I just realized that that maybe for sure I can continue to do personal development without having to put out YouTube videos about it. I don't need to document it. Um, and maybe my strength is somewhere else. You know, maybe I'm people will see me as an authority, and maybe I can create a business through music, which is something that I did in the years prior to that. I know that the timeline is kind of mixed up here, but so I started becoming strength in 2014, and from 2009 to 2012, I played in a band, and that was the period where I played guitar. I got my first guitar at 11, and so back in 2016, after years of working, I started working in a clothing shop like after high school, and that's the time where I kind of rediscovered music, I guess. So I stopped playing in a band when I was 17, got a job, started Become Your Strength, right? And then I started Lee Likes Music. So that was the sapling that would become this massive thing, which it is right now.
Right.
So I started doing, huh?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I started doing album reviews, kind of inspired by Anthony Fantano. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. So he's one of the biggest music influencers on YouTube, I guess you can say, because he's reviewing a lot of like album reviews. He's doing that, and so I thought, maybe I can do the same, but specifically for rock music, because that's what I enjoy the most. You know, maybe I can be the Anthony Fantano of rock music, you know?
Right.
And so I started doing that. It went horrible for about a year. Not a lot of people watched it, but it was a lot of fun, you know? It was, I learned a lot from just being, I became more comfortable in front of the camera, I guess. And my English improved a lot. A lot of people were like, okay, this dude is pretty good at English.
So how did you end up getting over 250,000 subscribers on your channel? Like you said it went rough for a year, but then did you learn something that started to grow it?
Yeah, I for a long time I followed this advice of just hustling, you know, of putting out a lot of content, because eventually you will create something that will take off, you know. But then I started studying how to rank, like SEO, on YouTube, and so I figured out that tags is super important if you want to rank on YouTube. It's very simple stuff, but it's very powerful if you want to get a lot of traction, right? And for a moment, I was like, why haven't I seen this before? But the moment you switch into this growth mindset where you try to be as open as possible to new ideas, that's the moment usually where you grow the most and where you achieve the most, right?
Yeah.
And so there was one month, I think it was in this, it must have been September, like the fall of 2017, where I took this course on, I think it's video influencers like Sean Cannell and what's his name? Sean Cannell and Benji. They have this course. And so I took this course, learned how to do tags, implemented the tags. I also experimented with a new format, which was different from doing album reviews. So instead of me sitting in front of a camera and just talking about an album, what I feel, what I think about it, I decided to create a documentary. And so that's, bless you. And so that's how this new format came to creation, and that's how I just continued the channel, I guess.
Nice. So I'm curious, like, what specifically about tags is the thing that, unless I should take this course, is the thing that's been so groundbreaking for you, for your music?
Well, it's YouTube is a search engine just like
Yeah.
Google. I'm
Yeah.
sure you know, yeah. And um, you can, the thing is, if you want tags to work, you need to be very deliberate about what type of a niche you put your channel into. So with you and me, it's very simple. We already have a very specific niche.
Yeah.
You have like animation, right? And with me, it's rock music. And so you want to search up different topics related to that niche, and you want to find out what's some of the most popular search phrases or key phrases that people search for when it comes to those topics or those niches, right? And so you take those tags that you find to be the most popular and you put them into search optimization tool. I guess that's what you call it. There's plenty. There's literally so many of those tools out there that I could go on forever. But there's one that I use that is called TubeBuddy, which is amazing. You just plot in the key phrase, and then you get a score of how good it is. So you get some information on what tags relate to that key phrase. You get information on how many people search for it per month, and also like an overall score of the competition and stuff like that. So you basically just have to become a little bit of an analytics nerd, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you don't really need to know that much. You just have to do a little bit of research in advance, and you should do this like even before you start creating like a script and an idea for a video, because this should be like the idea generation for a video, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, just have the right niche, do the right keyword research, and create a good video. It's I guess that's how complicated or simple it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to be the head of SEO at my last company, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's extremely powerful. The hustle mentality is just like everybody thinks just work hard, and you'll get somewhere. But that's like the outer surface, and then behind the scenes, yeah, you have to work hard and hustle, but you have to also understand exactly what you're doing to get there. I had a similar experience at my software company when I was just starting out. I was like, I'm going to create 100 blog posts and just see what takes off, and none of them took off. And it wasn't until I learned SEO that it was like, oh, this is night and day. And now we're getting thousands and thousands of people reading these blog posts, and it's really powerful. And I think it does apply to animation too, specifically because we're talking on an animation podcast. I've implemented some of those techniques for this podcast itself and on Google and whatnot, so you can easily find it. So I think your journey in the Lee Likes Music is super interesting, and it's incredible that you're able to get 250,000 followers. There's like a very small percentage of YouTube channels that can get that. But now tell me about why you've decided to transition from Lee Likes Music. You kind of mentioned it before, to animation specifically. Why not to music? Why are you pursuing character design and animation? Because music is kind of your background.
Yeah. That's a very it's a very interesting question, and it's a very hard question, and it's something that I've been trying to think about for some time now. The main reason why I switched from Lee Likes Music and into art was because I hoped, and kind of my goal was to slowly but surely transition into a more original style, right? Because back in 2019, yeah, last year, in May last year, my channel got a copyright strike. And so that's a very serious thing to get, yeah. Because you can often get copyright claims. There's a difference between copyright claims and copyright strikes, right? So if you get a claim, YouTube will basically, someone has, let's say I'm using a snippet of some music, or maybe an interview, or an image or video, right? And then the company that owns this music snippet will send in a file or I don't know exactly what you call it, but they basically tell YouTube that this creator has taken a piece of my content. And so what YouTube can then do is they can take away a piece of my revenue so that we can share revenue.
Right.
Now, I don't have any control over that. Sometimes they might block my video completely. Other times we might get shared revenue. Or I might be able to include that snippet of music still in my video, but I won't earn anything of the money that I originally earned, right? So that's a copyright claim. A copyright strike is different because then it's kind of going above and beyond that whole law of fair use. So there's this gray area of a law which is called fair use, which I've talked about this with some of my peers and some of the other channels that are similar to mine. Those creators, we often talk about how it's very hard to define what is actually fair use and what is not fair use, because fair use in its most simple sense is that you can use other people's content, but you can't make money off of it, and it has to be remixed with your own content. So there has to be a certain percentage of it has to be your content and borrowed content from other people. Now, then there's this whole, it also depends on the degree of how much original content it is in there, right?
Yeah.
So, and we could go on and talk about this forever, but it's kind of a headache. And this is why I wanted to get away from it, because you can never know for sure with YouTube if your content is, if it is under the fair use or if it's not under the fair use law, right?
Yeah,
so
and,
the whole
there's like
idea
so many cases that appear where it's like not intentional, but somebody gets, you know, banned anyways or whatnot. So it's scary.
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea of moving into animation and art, or like drawing in general, just to slowly but surely create my own images instead of using other people's images and videos, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's the thing about YouTube. YouTube is, and social media in general, I guess, is it's, how do you say? It's a marathon, right? You can't just be in it to, if you want to be successful, that is, and if you want to use it to create a sustainable career and income, you want to look at it as a marathon. So you want to have continual growth. You don't just want to jump from one thing to another and switch up things like very rapidly, because then you can end up losing an audience or have slower growth, which is okay, it's fine, and stuff like that. But
so are your intentions to go forward are to create a new YouTube channel that is 100% your own original content as a sustainable career for yourself?
Yes.
So you're kind of getting into the animation industry not to work for a studio or to freelance or make short films. You're like, what will the content of your YouTube channel have in the end? Like music by you, animation by you? Will it still be documentary style? I'm assuming you're also going to be using all those SEO tips that you learned to capture a niche.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you're asking about where I'm heading, like the future of the channel.
Like, what's this new channel when it has 250,000 subscribers? What is the content on it?
Well, that's the thing. I've been contemplating, and this is also why I said that it's a tough question, because I've been contemplating maybe not doing the channel anymore. And that might sound very counterintuitive now that I've built this huge following of people that are following me on They Likes Music. But I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta give stuff up in order to grow in a new direction. And of course, I can still use my knowledge with video and YouTube when it comes to art. Maybe I'll start a new channel. I don't know. The future is looking a little bit uncertain right now. But I'm still I'm still very certain that I'll continue with YouTube and that I'll pursue art in one fashion or another. So now my main focus is you asked why not continue with music, and maybe I could play guitar on the channel instead, or do something like that. And I've tried that. But that's the thing. My channel, I feel like it just changed maybe a little bit too fast. And so I feel a little bit more comfortable, and maybe it would be a better transition just to start a new channel related to what I'm doing now, which is, drawing and illustration and stuff like that. So I've been contemplating that idea. I'm pretty sure I've come to the conclusion that I will go for that, and that I will give up Lee Likes Music. I know it sounds crazy and counterintuitive, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. For me, it's really interesting that you've picked animation with character design specifically to focus on, because like another option, instead of using somebody else's images, you could pay someone to make images for you that you own, right? Or stuff like that. Like to switch up things so drastically sounds really interesting to me, especially because you also started a podcast on character design. Maybe let's just talk about that. So why did you choose character design specifically, and then also decide to start a podcast specifically on character design where you interview other people about that type of stuff?
Yeah. Why podcasting? Well, I've been doing podcasting, or I created a few podcasts with friends in the past, so I have a little bit of knowledge with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really that much of a serious thing in the past. I had one podcast called Blowing Up Speakers, I think it was called, with a couple of other guys.
So music related, I'm assuming.
Huh?
Music related, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was a lot of fun. Again, like reviewing rock music. But I guess the reason why I wanted to create a podcast about character design is because, again, just like with music, I drew a lot of characters, and I remember I was drawing a lot when I was younger, and people have always told me that I was good at drawing. So I was like, okay, why not head into it and see what I can do. So yeah, that's it's not a long thought process behind it. It's yeah.
So since you started pursuing character design, I guess it's been a couple months. What specifically have you learned that you didn't know before? Because you've also interviewed a whole bunch of people for your podcast about character design, and you've been studying. So what's like one of the biggest things that was a surprise, or I don't know, that you learned about designing characters, or just people who have that role professionally?
Yeah. Well, I started drawing a lot more and taking it a lot more seriously last year. I think it was in May 2019. And so it was actually before that, like in February, like something like that. And I started taking classes on New Masters Academy, which is one of the best courses online, or at least one of the best that I've taken so far. And so I guess what I've learned about character design that has been most outstanding is just how like simple shapes.
Yeah.
Simple shapes. It's a very simple concept, but it's such a powerful one. And I hear a lot of character designers talking about how even professionals still get this wrong, where they focus too much on the details of their character instead of focusing on the basic shapes and creating a strong design and illustration just with like squares, cubes, triangles, pyramids, stuff like that. So I've been focusing a lot on that recently, and I guess throughout this whole year that I've been doing drawing in general, I've just gotten this new way of seeing things, right? Because right now I'm trying to take a lot of life drawing. I'm trying to do life drawing exercises every single day, like from New Masters Academy.
Yeah.
And I'm really starting to feel like I'm seeing things differently. I don't want to say that I'm like I'm by no means a master or I haven't achieved any like big thing or breakthrough yet, but I'm starting to see things differently. I remember this. There's this teacher at New Masters Academy. His name is Stephen Houston. Steve Houston. Yeah, that's his name. He's one of the guys that teach the people who are at Disney how to do gesture drawing and stuff like that. And so one of the things that he said that was really that made me think a little bit was that you shouldn't, whenever you're drawing a person or whenever you're trying to draw something in general, you should always focus on the simple shapes. You shouldn't draw a book or a jacket or a person. You should draw the head as a circle, or the hand as a wedge shape, or the arm as a cylinder, right? And the more I find, the more I do life drawing exercises, the more I transition into this mindset of seeing the shapes and how the shapes connect, instead of seeing how the arm connects to the forearm and stuff like that. So it's it's such a weird and interesting experience to kind of change your mindset like that, and it just shows how I guess transformative it can be to learn something new and pursue something new. So yeah, I find that is really interesting.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
something that I had to learn too, because nobody really teaches you to construct things in drawing growing up in school or whatever, at least from my experience. You always just draw the outline of what you see as like a sharp line, and then you wonder why it looks wonky and things are off proportion and not fitting right. And then when you start to do construction of simple shapes, it seems so simple almost to do that, but it turns out like 1,000 times better and more accurate. So yeah, I think that's super interesting. So you're taking figure drawing classes and stuff like that. Are you going to get into other areas of drawing, like perspective and storyboarding, for instance, for like figuring out stories, or like other areas of animation too? Or are you focusing just on the character design?
Mostly on creating characters right now, and like I said, the anatomy. But I've done storyboarding, story artists. I've kind of dipped my toes into that story artist's path of animation and illustration. Aaron Blaise, you're familiar with Aaron Blaise?
I think so. I'm gonna have to look him
He's
up.
been on the podcast.
Aaron Blaise has been on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm asking if he's been
No,
on.
no, he hasn't.
Okay, but he's a Disney animator.
Oh yeah, I know who this is.
Illustrator. Yeah, he made the Beast in the Beauty and the Beast. He designed that character,
yes.
and he has this amazing. Like I said, there's so many amazing sources online where you can learn like animation and illustration and stuff like that. But Aaron Blaise also has this online website where he has a lot of singular video. I guess, yeah, singular courses. It's not a membership site, I believe. It's like singular courses that he sells for, yeah, $20-$30. It's pretty cheap for what it is, or for what you get. And so there's this one course that he promoted, which is about storyboarding. And so I got into that about a month ago. I haven't really followed through the entire course, because now I'm just locking down on anatomy and trying to take one thing at a time. As creative, it's sometimes hard to just nail down on one thing and focus on that for like several months. That can be a tough thing to do in itself. But yeah, I found that so interesting too, and there's just so much to learn about all of these different facets of animation and illustration. I think maybe animation is, I wouldn't say it is easier to learn. You definitely need a different type of skill set, and there's different like 12 fundaments of animation, right? And different things that you have to take into consideration when you're going into different fields of animation. But illustration, and I think this is the reason why I gravitated more to illustration than animation, at least right now, is because there's so much more depth to illustration. There's so many more fields, I feel. And so if you can improve on one of the facets or one of the fundamentals of illustration, you can really use that to your advantage when you're going into animation. I don't know if that's true. I mean, you have a little bit more experience than me. That's just my personal take, but could you
Yeah,
speak
I
to that?
think when you improve on one aspect, you kind of improve on all aspects. Like your figure drawing helps you draw quicker for like storyboarding, and like perspective carries through, and like it's all like intertwined. Actually, I wanted to ask you about that. So you decided to take online courses and kind of learn on your own versus I decided to go to school. And at school, like you have between 7 and 9 courses a semester, all focusing on different things. So you're like forced to learn storyboarding and perspective and figure drawing and like all at the same time. Um, was there a reason that you chose not to do schooling specifically or to do things on your own? Because for me, that was like a very tough decision to figure out myself. And in the end, I decided to go to school because I knew that I'd be surrounded by like amazing peers and like I've never been around other people who are interested in animation like me before and industry connections and like they have a defined path and all that stuff. So for you, you're going to be learning this anyways, I guess. Why did you choose to do it on your own time online?
Well, I've still not made up my mind about whether I should go to school or not. I might actually end up going to school next year, but we'll see. The reason why I haven't chosen to do it yet is I don't know. I like the challenge of doing something on my own, and I also I also have a very strong confidence in the fact that I can work hard because I've heard that that's not just something I'm telling myself. I've heard that from people around me that, you know, you're a hard worker and I can't believe the type of discipline you have. And when you hear stuff like that, you start to realize that, holy shit, I might actually have some, some resources that I can use for
Yeah.
myself on my own, you know?
Yeah.
And, and yeah, I guess that's just the reason why I have done things solo so far. I mean, like I said, I'm considering going to school because it can be a little bit tedious and maybe a little bit boring sometimes to sit on your own and not have your peers around you. Like you said, that's one of the big pros of going to school. You always have a feedback network
Yeah.
around you, and you have friends, and you have this amazing flow of relaxation and fun, and also learning all in one big bowl,
It's also
right?
hard work too. It's not all relaxation.
Yeah. I get
Yeah,
it.
I think another benefit is like I found that when I was like when I was putting together my portfolio from school, I hired a tutor and I was learning on my own from like online courses and stuff. And I found that I was kind of in my own bubble of like my own. It was very hard to like break out of my own style because I was just drawing the same stuff over and over again with slight improvements, I guess. But in school, there's so many like influences and you actually see how people are doing their processes, and so I take some of what they're doing and like I'm able to adapt more easily and learn faster, I guess, than doing it on my own. So there's also that benefit too, is you actually see how other people learn, which helps
Mm,
your learning, and then you have to explain to other people too, which helps solidify in your own mind how you do things.
yeah.
I want to chat a little bit more about the podcast. Can you tell me who you've had on it so far that maybe you can do a little promo for the podcast? But like, who have you had on the podcast other than me? Because I was in an episode. But yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. I've had um, Terry Ibel, obviously.
Hey.
Uh, I've had Alejandro Garcia. He's a professor at San Jose State in California, and he's a professor teaching the physics of animation,
Nice.
which was he was the first guest on the podcast, and I thought that was super interesting. Very, I wouldn't say it was a deep conversation because again, I'm a beginner in animation, so I probably didn't ask the most like the best questions, but I did the best I could. Um, what I learned from that one was that um, animation is simple, but it's not easy,
Yeah.
right? It's there are 12 principles, and but it can be really hard to create a world where, let's say, two animated figures exist together and interact, and you want them to have a sense of weight, and maybe one is fighting another. And so there's a lot of subtleties in that type of animation. So if you want to get into animation, you have to essentially be a really hard worker, and I guess you have a lot of experience with that. And yeah, he was one of the things that he was also interesting about him is that he comes from a background of just being a hardcore gamer. He told me in the beginning, he's like, I don't know, maybe like 60 years old, like in his mid 60s or something. And I asked him like, okay, hey man, how have you been doing during these times with coronavirus and all that? He was just like, I've been sitting here gaming, playing the latest this and that. I was just like, I was sitting there like the young guy, feeling like I should be the one knowing all these games and stuff, but I kind of grew away from that very fast, right? But anyways, yeah, he has a lot of experience with working with in the gaming industry, or with animators in the gaming industry. So he's got a little bit of experience from that. He's been working with movies like on Madagascar, some of these big movies from DreamWorks, which is interesting. So yeah, that's Alejandro Garcia. And then I also had what's his name? Jesus, Bruzet. Bruzet is his last name. A very French name that I thought maybe you would know since you're Canadian.
No. My French understanding is very poor, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, his last name, his surname is Bruzet. Raphael Bruzet is his name. He was the second guest that I had on the podcast. He's a director for motion design in Paris, and he's worked with, if I remember correctly, he has worked with Virgin and some other big companies as well. One of the interesting things about him is that he's been working in so many different fields, right? He has experience with animation. He has experience with motion design. He has experience with drawing, with photography. And I feel maybe that's one of the reasons why I liked having him on, because we resonated in that. I've kind of jumped all over the place. He jumped all over the place. And sometimes you feel a lot of creatives, I think also creatives that decide to not go for school and just learning online, have this tendency to explore a lot of different things and feel like I should narrow down and find my thing, my niche or whatever, right? And Raphael Bruzet was someone who just showed me that if you want to, you can do all of these things, and you can go the route of becoming a director at the end of the day if you want to. And all of these experiences, let's just say that you have a lot of experience within the Adobe suite with all these Adobe software, you can utilize that and use the generalist experience as a strength to become more of a director, essentially.
Nice.
And then the last guest that I had on, it was you, and then we had which was the last one?
Dan Eckes?
Dan Eckes, yeah. You listen to that?
No, I just brought up your podcast on my desktop right now.
that was the best timing, man.
I will listen to it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Dan Eckes, he's a cartoonist. So he's basically a graphic novelist, cartoonist, and I guess you can also label him as a freelancer, because he's mostly earning his money off of freelance work for other businesses, and he's also doing his own graphic novel. Nice. Which is amazing. The reason why I think that conversation was valuable, at least to me, was because the idea behind going into or one of the ideas that I've had of going into illustration and animation was that for Lee Likes Music, I wanted to create breathing images. Like that was the easiest. I found out that that is the easiest form of animation that I could possibly create for my channel and still make it look pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
So what I mean with breathing images, you're probably thinking, right?
I have no
Well,
idea.
yeah, it's if you have, let's say you have a painting, right, a digital painting, or just a photography in general, and then you mask out or you cut out a piece of that photography or painting, and then you maybe animate the background layer and the foreground layer so that they move. That is considered animation, but it's a very simple animation, right? And so yeah, that was one of the things that I really wanted to get into, and it relates more to, you know, still frames and storyboarding. And so that is also the reason why I got into that Aaron Blaise storyboarding course, and also the reason why I found Dan Eakes to be that conversation that conversation was really valuable, because as I don't know, I try to figure out what the difference between storyboarding and cartoons were, because for me, as I've never been a big cartoon person. I'm
Mhm.
interested in it, but I've never really read that many cartoons. I read some Donald Duck when I was younger, right? But
Yeah.
that's about it. And so like nowadays I thought, well, if I want to get good at storyboarding, or I want to know more about it, maybe I should go to and talk to someone who's into to cartoons and graphic novels, because they are always creating these frames of actions and stories. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Nope, it's not.
No.
It's not at all. Because a comic or a graphic novel, the whole point of a page is to sell the page. You want to sell the entire thing, as it's like a, how do you say, the if you're creating an animatic, or if you're creating something for animation, the whole idea, from what I understand so far, is that uh, you want to communicate the story, while in a comic you want to communicate the story, but you also want to sell the page. So you turn the page and you look at the entire thing and you're like, wow, this is interesting, I want to learn more.
Mm.
Right, the pictures come at you more. So
That makes
yeah,
sense.
I don't know if that
Yeah, that
answers
makes sense because you
questions,
don't want
but
somebody to just skim and end up at the end. You want them to really relish the images on each page, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think
So
that's
yeah,
super smart what you're doing. You're like you're interested in an area, so you bring on somebody on your podcast and pick their brain. I might be doing the same thing. So going forward, the podcast for you, is it like a monthly thing? Is it a weekly thing? Like what's your plan?
my plan is to make it a weekly thing eventually.
Nice.
Right now I haven't really gotten into the flow of getting people on. I mean, I try to contact people every day almost.
Oh wow.
So my goal is to contact at least one new person every day. So with, you know, that momentum, hopefully we will get I'll get one new person on every single week. So that's kind of the goal. Yeah.
I think it's totally doable because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I've been running this weekly for over a year, so it works.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess we've like I've picked your brain on like where you came from, the YouTube channel, what you're going for now, and the podcast. Is there anything else that you kind of want to share about your journey, or any stories or anything?
Um,
Maybe
I
some
think
final advice for somebody who's on the fence of starting their own thing, like you're doing.
yeah. I think the most important thing is just to do something meaningful.
Yeah,
You know,
that's good.
because if there's a lot of people that will tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and you know, sometimes it can be really hard to know what you are going to do with your life. That is something that I've struggled with a lot in the past, and and a life without meaning is not really it's not a pleasant thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really complicated thing to get out there. But I think I'll leave it at that. Just do something that you feel is meaningful, and just do the best you can with that.
I
Because
really like that, yeah. Especially
yeah,
because what you said, like to just mirror that back at you, as soon as you decide to do something like artistic, everybody has an opinion on what you should do and do this and do that. And oh, you should make it like this person made theirs because they was successful. And it's a lot to take in. So yeah, totally. Just do something meaningful that you find personally valuable. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
yeah. If you would like to check out my channel, which is locking down in the same way as the corona virus soon. No, you can check out Lee Likes Music if you want to. That's I guess the best way to check out my whole catalog of work. If you want to reach out personally, you can send an email to chrishogg@artwork.com. You'll probably put that in the description, I'm sure.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Lee Likes Music on Instagram, Lee Likes Music on Twitter, and that's it.
And I'll also include the character design podcast.
Yes.
As well, a link to that. So you can find all the links to all those things he just mentioned in the description of this podcast. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Christian. It's been great to pick your brain. Also, you picked my brain at one point, so I'm glad we came full circle with the podcast thing.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And if you're listening, make sure you check out those links. And that's all for now. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, take care. Bye.